Okay, hey, thanks for joining us. I'm Ernest Lunning with Colorado Politics, here with Evan Munsing, a Democrat running in the primary in Colorado's 8th Congressional District for the chance to run against first-term Representative Republican Gabe Evans. He's going to be answering questions prepared by AARP Colorado. We'll be asking the same questions to Representative Evans and the other Democrats who are running for this seat, which could determine which party controls the House of Representatives after next year's election. Evan, please take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us why you're running.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me on. I grew up in a family in which service was very important. I also grew up with the idea that I wanted to be a Marine. I've always thought that being a Marine is the coolest job you can have. Still think that's true. So after college, joined the Marine Corps in a time of war. I volunteered for the infantry knowing that I would be going to war and going to combat. Did a couple deployments. I was in Afghanistan, in Sangin, in combat when Fallujah fell to ISIS. A lot of my Marines had fought in Fallujah, had lost buddies there. And the sense of disillusionment and frustration that those Marines felt was very palpable. And I came home, like a lot of veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan, very frustrated with our political system, because what we saw was that there were a lot of people in office who cared far more about winning their next election than in doing the hard things and speaking hard truths to the American people. And I left the Marines in part because of that frustration I had with our political system. So I went into business because I like challenges, I like solving problems, and I like leading people. I've had a great opportunity to work with small businesses across the country, helping them grow. I've ran businesses myself. I've been a leader in business. So I know what it's like to wake up at 3 a.m. sweating about payroll. And so I care deeply about helping business owners, helping workers, and also helping people who serve our country get better results from government. And right now, a lot of people are frustrated with what's happening in DC, and they want leaders to step up who are going to fight for them and take care of them rather than serving their careers or serving the parties.
Okay, well, go to our first question is
Sure.
about caregiving.
Yeah.
And the AARP wants to know, new data shows that there are more than 1 million family caregivers in Colorado. What kind of policies or legislation would you champion to ease the burdens that caregivers have?
Yeah, we know this is a growing trend across the country. It's not just here in Colorado, it's all across the US, and it's everything from people who are aging in place and need extra care to people who are dealing with long-term chronic illnesses. So there are a couple things we need to do. The first is we should be putting in place tax credits for caregivers to make sure that they have the money that they need to survive in a quality way and help out the people they're caring for. Number two is we should also be supporting businesses and encouraging them to have more flexible work options so people can balance giving care to family members or to loved ones with working part-time or full-time jobs and having that career opportunity. And the third thing is we need to make sure that we have a healthcare system that actually works and is able to provide both medical care, but also treatment options for people who are dealing with long-term health issues.
Okay, we'll get to some of those other topics
Sure.
in subsequent questions here. But speaking of communities, older Coloradans are not immune to the housing affordability crisis. No one in Colorado is. What policy solutions will you seek to help Coloradans age 50 and over find and keep affordable housing?
Yeah, I think everybody who lives in Colorado knows how expensive housing has gotten here. Homeownership is, for all Coloradans, all Americans, a cornerstone of the American dream. Owning a home is not just an investment, it's also a statement of your freedom and your individuality. And so I think it's critical that we give people opportunities to have homes that they love and communities that they're proud of. That comes down to a few things. Number one is we need to get rid of some of the outdated regulations and red tape that limit innovation in housing, limit the kind of materials that we can build with, limit how we build, the processes we use. The second thing is we need to be encouraging development of different types of housing to make it more affordable. And so ways we can approach that are having, for example, funds available in Washington to encourage local communities to approach land use in different ways that allow building houses with different footprints that can be more affordable to first-time home buyers as well as people who are in their 50s and above. And it's all kind of the same solution set.
As the number of Coloradans over the age of 50 increases, what can be done to help them age in place and remain in their communities?
Yeah, so I think it's some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, and
Yeah.
it is a combination of how do you make sure that housing is affordable, but it's also how do you make sure that people have the care that they need. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to, number one, again, have flexible caregiving standards, have a healthcare system that works for ordinary Americans and ordinary Coloradans. But it also means that we need to have more innovation, both in how we approach land use and land development, but also in the types of homes that we build. And we can encourage communities to be more flexible, but we can also allow more innovation in construction.
Okay, turning to healthcare,
Sure.
what do you see as the biggest public health challenge facing the state, and how would you address it?
Look, to be very simple about it, it is affordability.
Yeah.
We know that the One Big Beautiful bill, which Gabe Evans voted for, has made healthcare more expensive for everybody. It's made it more expensive if you have ACA coverage. It's made it more expensive if you have Medicare or Medicaid, and it's made barriers to getting healthcare much, much more difficult. Um, and I've talked to people all across the state who are seeing their premiums go up by 50%, 100%. I talked to someone who's a veteran, and one of my personal friends who has a family of 2 kids. They're both small business owners, and they're going to be paying $40,000 a year just for their coverage, and $20,000 of a deductible. And so you're talking about potentially being $60,000 out of pocket by the end of the year. That's crazy. We need to solve that problem.
All right, from a legislative perspective, what can be done to improve our state as a great place for fitness, health, and well-being for Coloradans of all ages?
Yeah, so I'm an outdoors guy. Uh, my fiance and I are both hikers, backpackers, mountain bikers, and hunters. We love the outdoors, and we absolutely need to protect public lands. We've seen the Trump administration and Gabe Evans try to get rid of public lands, try to weaken protections, try to underfund the park services, and also to sell off land to developers. That's totally not okay. We need to make sure that we keep those public spaces open and available to Coloradans so that we all can get outside and enjoy those spaces together.
Thanks. And financial and consumer issues that the
Sure.
AARP wants to know about. Congress is tackling major consumer safety issues as technology rapidly evolves and changes, including putting guardrails on when businesses and governments use AI to make major decisions that impact people. What's your philosophy on balancing consumer rights and technological innovation?
Yeah, so I think everybody right now is both excited but also concerned about what AI means for the future of this country. I think we absolutely need to win the AI race. We can't let countries like China beat us on AI, but we need to balance that with protecting consumer data, protecting individuals, and also protecting workers. And so that kind of comes down to a few things. The first is we need to have data privacy protections in place and enforced to make sure that individuals' data is kept safe and secure, but also that things like intellectual property are kept safe and secure, or that companies are remunerated for that. The second thing is we know we're already seeing companies go through layoffs or reduce headcount because of the productivity gains that they're getting from AI in some specific situations. And so we need to have in place both worker protections, we need to have wage subsidies in place for people who are at risk of being laid off to make sure that companies maintain headcount and maintain good jobs. But we also need to have apprenticeship programs in place for young Americans as they transition out of high school or college into an environment that is so rapidly changing so we can take care of them and make sure they have good jobs as well.
Groups like the AARP consistently hear from members that rising utility costs pose affordability challenges for Coloradans on a fixed income. In Congress, how would you ensure affordable utilities for older Coloradans?
Yeah, so we know utility prices are going up right now. The One Big Beautiful bill that Gabe Evans voted on months ago, before we voted on it, we knew that that was going to drive up utility prices. Utility prices were going to go up by about 10%, which is a pretty significant spike year over year. We also know that thousands of jobs are being cut in Colorado in green energy, which is going to reduce our GDP by over $1 billion over the next few years. So we absolutely need to be protecting Coloradan jobs and creating a pathway to affordable utilities but also building a future that is built around green energy and renewables that create great jobs here in Colorado, but also protect the environment. And so that means that we need to get rid of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which has been terrible to the budget, terrible to the nation's economy, terrible to workers, but also terrible for affordability.
Our last question here is Colorado established a prescription drug affordability review board to research and review the costs of prescription medications. Do you support this idea, and what steps can Congress take to ensure that medications are affordable to Coloradans?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We know that drug prices in the US are out of control. The US pays 2 to 4 times as much as what European countries do for drugs because we don't have any kind of national price negotiations. So I think what Colorado did at the state level makes sense, but we need to expand that at the national level so that we have a national bargaining board for drug prices to make sure that Americans are getting drugs at a good, fair price, and so that we're not effectively subsidizing the rest of the world so that they get cheaper drugs than we do while we pay for that innovation.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you for participating, and hope that viewers have had a chance to learn something today. Please check out our interviews with the other 8th Congressional District candidates and candidates for governor on coloradopolitics.com and at AARP Colorado. Thanks for watching.